Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. Sometimes children experience paranormal phenomena which, years later, they realise are completely unexplainable. Here are 3 such chilling childhood experiences reported by Weird World viewers. They all seem to involve a young spirit trying to reach out to an earthbound child in not always friendly encounters. Karl. Karl, in Germany, shared a strange account of himself almost drowning as a child. Now 40+ years old and the father of small children, for him the event still has no rational explanation, apart from that of some malevolent spirit. When Karl was about 5 years old, he remembers being at the house of friends of his parents, where there was an old decommissioned swimming pool in the garden. The pool, which was about 4 metres in length, was uncovered and full of brown, dirty water, where countless dead bugs floated on the surface. He remembers playing with the neighbour's daughter, who was about his age, beside the pool. They had a couple of small toy boats, and they had a lot of fun tossing the boats across the muddy waters. The girl stood at one end of the pool, and Karl was at the other end. She would toss her boat over to Karl and vice versa, while his parents sat only a few metres away chatting with their friend and watching the children, well aware that their son couldn't swim. Karl's memory of the hot sunny day is very vivid, of observing the sun's reflections on the brown water where the dead bumblebees floated. After some time of playing with the little girl, he noticed that she started to toss her boat at a shorter distance and not far enough for him to retrieve. He was having increasing difficulties in grabbing her boat and remembers being annoyed about it and maybe even complaining to her. He managed to get the boat a few times anyway, however, doesn't remember the girl talking to him or responding in any way. Eventually, she tossed the boat really far short, and while he tried to grab it, he somehow slipped, and to this day remembers falling into the brown, cold water. He remembers everything going dark very quickly, being only 5 and unable to swim. He doesn't know how long he was underwater, perhaps only for a few seconds, until he felt someone grabbing his hair and pulling him out of the pool. He coughed and spat out the filthy pool water he already managed to get into his lungs. It was his father who had watched him playing at the pool and immediately after seeing him fall into the water had jumped up and luckily still managed to spot him in the brown waters. He had pulled Karl out, and, young child as he was, Karl had angrily called him names because it had been quite painful to be pulled out of the pool by his hair. At the time, he didn't understand that he was very close to drowning on that sunny day. He doesn't remember how the girl reacted or even her being there after his fall into the water. The really chilling aspect of Karl's experience came many years later when he recalled this event with his parents. One day they talked about how his father saved his life on that occasion when he had fallen into the water because of his toy boat. Karl became a bit annoyed and told them that it was not his fault. After all, it was caused by the neighbour's little girl whom he had played with that day. She intentionally and repeatedly tossed the boat not strongly enough so that he had increasing trouble with trying to catch it. He noticed puzzled looks on his parents' faces when he told them that, and they then told him that there had never been any other child present, that on that particular day he had been playing on his own at the pool the whole time. He was the only one in the garden, no other children around. Karl now thinks back and still remembers the small black-haired girl in her dress and how they had fun tossing those boats over the pool until she tried to kill him. Karl has never experienced anything like that before or since, and whatever the phenomenon was, it took him unnervingly close to an untimely end at the hands of a rather nasty presence. Thomas Woods has lately started thinking about a strange experience from his childhood. In 1969, his Methodist pastor father moved the family from his first church parish to another parish house in a town called Ellis in Kansas in the US. During a visit, Thomas and his brother felt privileged to meet the former pastor's family, who were moving out. However, the pastor's son seemed very worried and stressed about something that was on his mind. While their parents chatted, Thomas and his brother walked to the Washington school yard with him in the evening. That was when the boy told them that he was going to have an operation which involved the removal of an organ. He told them that his chances of survival were quite slim. At that stage, being very young, Thomas feels that he probably didn't really grasp the boy's situation. After his family had moved in and settled, they were shocked to find Thomas's brother's room closet full of nifty toys. Later, they were told that sadly the previous pastor's son had died and his family were going to come and collect the toys in the closet at a later date. It was around this time that Thomas awoke from a horrible nightmare. His dream seemed to be about hell, wherein he can still remember the burning red hallways and his hair being yanked back. He awoke to find his hair pinched between the mattress and the headboard of his bed. Already very scared, he awoke to a pitch-black room, with his chest pounding from fright. At that moment, a shadow of a man arose from the end of his bed. He has since heard of the ghost-like entity called the Hat Man, and at the time was shocked to see that this figure was, in fact, wearing a hat. He ran to his brother's bedroom and lay on the floor with his blanket over him for security. He finally went to sleep, but then woke again to see a white, transparent boy standing in front of him and going through the toys in the closet. Not wanting to be the only one seeing this strange sight, he grabbed his brother who was sleeping above him and woke him up. Thomas's brother also still remembers the experience to this day, but strangely he saw a different apparition. He saw a knight in armour. The house where these eerie encounters took place was demolished about 10 years ago. Damon. A young lost soul seems to have reached out to Damon Ballard in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the US. When Damon was about 8 years old, in the fall of 1998, he had an encounter with what he believed was the spirit of a young boy. One night, when in bed, he heard someone saying, "Hey, hey," over and over again. Thinking that it was his brother, he told him to be quiet, but he kept hearing the insistent voice repeating his call again and again. Finally, he got out of bed to tell his brother to stop, but then saw that he was sleeping. He heard the noise again coming from behind him and saw that there in the corner was a little boy. When Damon saw him, the boy smiled, but when he smiled, it just wasn't right. The boy's smile stretched all the way back to his ears until nothing showed but teeth. Damon became terrified and hid in the corner. Later, after the noise finally stopped, he fell asleep. The following night, the frightening disturbance happened again, and this time the boy was right next to Damon's bed. Damon cried and covered his head with the blankets. He says that this occurrence continued to happen every night after that until one day he and his mother were going to the store. He looked up and there on a billboard was a photograph of the very boy whose apparition he had seen. Written on the billboard it said, "Please find my killer." Damon told his mum that he had seen the little boy in his room. After that, he never saw him again, but ever since then, he feels that the boy is still here with him. He is now 31 years old, but Damon still sleeps with the covers pulled over his head.